The contract. The briefing was clean. Too clean. Infiltrate Aurelia Prime. Reach the upper crystal tiers. Eliminate Empress Thane. Confirm termination. Extract. 10 years of war. Billions dead across colonies and hive worlds. The client dossier painted her as the architect of it all, a calculating alien sovereign who fed entire fleets into the fire without blinking. I'd seen enough tyrants to know the type. Power wrapped in ceremony. Surrounded by guards. Afraid of shadows. I wasn't there as a soldier anymore. No flag on my shoulder. No command chain. Just a contract and a number wired in advance. Aurelia Prime rose beneath me like a cathedral grown from starlight. Towers of translucent crystal pierced the sky, refracting the distant sun into violent ribbons of blue and violet. My drop shuttle skimmed low through anti-orbital blind spots before I jumped, landing 3 tiers below the Royal Observatory. Security was lighter than expected. That should have been my first warning. I moved upward through fractured corridors and shattered glass bridges, stepping over the scars of recent bombardments. The palace had already been hit. Someone wanted this place softened. The observatory doors stood open. No guards. No drones. No defensive grid. She stood at the center of the broken dome, city lights burning beneath her like a sea of stars. Tall. Composed. Her skin shimmered between deep indigo and silver where the cracked ceiling let moonlight spill across her. Empress Thane turned slowly as my rifle sight aligned with her chest. "You move quietly for a human," she said. She was smiling, like she'd been expecting me. I kept the rifle trained on her center mass. "Old habits don't die. They calcify." "You're alone," I said. Her eyes, luminous, star-flecked, didn't waver from mine. "Yes. That's either arrogance," I continued, stepping into the shattered observatory, boots crunching over crystalline debris, "or a trap." "Or," she replied calmly, "it is neither." The wind cut through the broken dome above us, carrying the distant hum of Aurelia Prime's lower districts. No guards emerged. No hidden snipers. My tactical feed showed nothing but fractured architecture and heat signatures from the city below. Still too clean. "You know why I'm here," I said. "Yes." "You going to beg?" A faint shift in her expression, not amusement. Not fear. Something else. "I am going to show you something. I didn't come for a presentation." "No," she said quietly. "You came for my execution." Her voice didn't tremble. No tremor in her hands. No micro-flinch when I adjusted my aim. I'd studied target physiology for years. I knew when someone was masking terror. She wasn't. Instead, she raised one hand slowly, 2 fingers extended, and the shattered air around us flickered. Hardlight projections ignited. Data streams unfolded in concentric arcs around the observatory chamber. Military timestamps. Fleet trajectories. Encrypted signal bursts. Earth command authorization codes. My HUD automatically began parsing. Then it froze, because I recognized one of the signatures. General Alden Rourke. He'd pinned my commendation medal on my chest 8 years ago. "That's fabricated," I said automatically. Lysera tilted her head slightly. "Is it?" Another file opened, a redacted transcript of an emergency broadcast from the early days of the war. The Velkith first strike that had supposedly destroyed the Martellian mining colony. I had seen the footage. Everyone had. Alien vessels dropping from warp without warning. Surface incineration. Civilian casualties. The justification for retaliation. Now a parallel file opened beside it. Intercepted corporate communications stamped with the insignia of the Helix Dominion Consortium. Internal memos. Trigger event must appear organic. Ensure debris signatures mimic Velkith plasma residue. Authorize remote detonation once civilian density threshold is confirmed. My pulse spiked. "That's not possible," I muttered. "It is," she said, "because it happened." I stepped closer to the projections, lowering the rifle just slightly. Not enough to surrender control, but enough that the barrel dipped away from her throat. "Helix Dominion is a resource conglomerate," I said. "Fuel extraction, deep space logistics. They don't start wars." "They do," she replied. "When war multiplies their profit margins by a factor of 9. More files cascaded around us. Orbital mining rights disputes. Rare stellar fuel deposits discovered in the Aurelia cluster. Energy rich enough to power human expansion for centuries. Helix Dominion acquisition requests denied by both Earth Parliament and Velkith Hive Council. Denied. 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 Then, manufacture instability. Escalation window approved. My stomach tightened. You're telling me, I said slowly, that the first contact incident was staged. Yes. That Martel Lion was a false flag. Yes. That 10 years of slaughter, my voice sharpened despite myself, was engineered by a corporation. She met my stare without blinking. Yes. Silence pressed between us. I had interrogated prisoners before. I knew deception patterns. Vocal stress tells. I drift. Defensive micro-expressions. She wasn't lying. Or she believed what she was saying so completely it had replaced fear. You expect me to take this at face value? I asked. I expect you to verify it. Another projection unfolded. Earth Fleet dispatch orders from the first retaliatory strike. I zoomed in. Authentication codes. Layered command routing. Encrypted handshake protocols. They were real. Not just visually convincing, structurally correct. The kind of encryption key only someone inside Earth High Command could replicate. How did you get this? I demanded. Because, she said, stepping closer. Not threatening, just deliberate. We intercepted Helix Dominion's shadow channels 3 years ago. Then why hasn't this been released? Her gaze flickered, just briefly, toward the fractured city below. Because the moment we attempted to expose them, our own internal security collapsed. You're the Empress, I snapped. You command fleets. I guide them, she corrected softly. And fleets do not protect you from infiltration. A new file appeared. Velkith Fleet logs. Orders to stand down during key early engagements. Internal sabotage. High-ranking Hive commanders later assassinated under unknown circumstances. You had moles, I said. Yes. So did we. Yes. The words settled heavily in the air. You're saying both sides were steered, I muttered, toward maximum escalation. I felt something shift in my chest. Not belief. Not yet. But doubt. And doubt was more dangerous than a bullet. You could have shown this to a diplomat, I said. I did. And he died. Another image flared. A human envoy shuttle destroyed in orbit 6 years ago. Blamed on Velkith anti-air. I remembered the outrage. The retaliatory strike that followed. I remembered participating in it. You're telling me that was stage 2. Yes. The word again. Steady. Unwavering. I swallowed. And you think I'm just going to walk out of here with you? I said. Because you gave me a slideshow? She didn't flinch at the accusation. Instead, she said, you haven't pulled the trigger. I tightened my grip on the rifle instinctively. Maybe I'm gathering intel. Perhaps, she allowed. Her eyes held mine. But if you were certain I was the architect of your people's suffering, you would have fired the moment you entered this chamber. The truth of that landed harder than any accusation. She wasn't wrong. I'd had the shot. Clear line of sight. No defensive response. And I'd hesitated. Not because she was beautiful. Not because she looked fragile. Because something felt wrong. Because the mission parameters had felt engineered. Because the palace defenses had been suspiciously thin. Because a target this high profile should not have been this accessible. You're asking me to believe, I said carefully, that I was sent here not just to kill you. Yes. But to silence you. Yes. A low vibration rolled through the observatory floor. I paused. That, she said quietly, is not part of my plan. Another tremor. Distant, but growing. My tactical feed flickered. New heat signatures in upper atmosphere. Orbital vectors descending fast. Human design. Strike craft. My blood ran cold. That's not Velkith, I said. No, she agreed. It's Earth. The projections around us flickered out. The air felt suddenly thinner. They're early, she murmured. Early for what? She met my eyes again. For erasing everything. Another explosion rocked the lower city tiers. Shockwaves rippled through crystal towers. I checked my comm dead. Signal jammed. You knew this was coming, I said. Yes. You expected them to hit the palace. Yes. And you still stood here waiting for me. Her answer was simple. Because you were the variable. Another blast. Closer. Fragments of crystalline structure shattered outward from a neighboring tower. I looked back at her. At the woman I was paid to kill. At the evidence still burning in my HUD memory. At the fleet's signatures descending through atmosphere. Not to extract me. To incinerate this place. To wipe out the Empress. And the proof. And me. You said you had something to show me, I said. I have shown you. That's not what I meant. A faint, almost unreadable flicker crossed her expression. Then ask your next question quickly, she said. Because in approximately 4 minutes, this observatory will no longer exist. And for the first time since entering the chamber, I realized I might not be the assassin. I might be the disposable witness. If you've watched this far, then this story is really interesting to you. Please confirm it by clicking like under this video. It doesn't cost you anything, but it will help me understand what story to publish for you next. Write in the comments who the alien woman in this story looks like, and who you would like to see in the next one. Let's move on. The third impact shattered what was left of the upper dome. Crystal screamed as it fractured. Shards rained down in lethal arcs, scattering across the observatory floor. I moved on instinct, grabbing Lysera and pulling her behind the collapsed base of a support column just as a shockwave tore through the chamber. The sky above Aurelia Prime burned. Human strike cruisers hovered like iron predators in low orbit, their hulls glowing from atmospheric friction. Precision bombardment. Targeted. Systematic. This wasn't an invasion. It was sterilization. They're not trying to capture you, I said over the rising thunder. No, Lysera replied, her voice steady despite the tremors. They are ensuring there is no testimony. Another blast hit the palace spine below us. Structural integrity warnings flashed across my visor. The entire upper tier was destabilizing. You knew this was coming, I said again. Yes. Then why stay? Because if I fled before you arrived, she said, meeting my gaze through the falling debris, you would have believed the narrative written about me. And now you have seen enough to question it. A section of the observatory floor cracked open 10 meters away, dropping into darkness. Heat signatures flared below, secondary detonations. My contract suddenly made perfect sense. Insertion window, minimal resistance, direct path to target. No extraction protocol confirmed. They never planned to bring me home. They planned to vaporize the palace with me inside it. I wasn't a mercenary. I was insurance. You said 4 minutes, I muttered, checking the atmospheric descent clock on my HUD. We've used 2. Yes. You have an exit? Her eyes flicked toward the lower wall, a curved band of crystal etched with faint geometric lines. There are transit tunnels beneath the capital, she said. Ancient. Pre-imperial. Distance? 800 meters below us. Access. She moved without hesitation, placing her palm against the etched wall. The crystal pulsed once, then split open along hidden seams, revealing a descending spiral passage carved from darker mineral. Of course, I muttered. You are still free to complete your mission, she said quietly. I looked at her, bombardment lighting her silhouette from behind. The woman I was paid to kill. The architect of a war, if the official story was true. Or the last witness to a manufactured genocide, if she was. You could be lying, I said. Yes. This could be a contingency. Get me underground. Convert me. Use me. Yes. The honesty hit harder than denial. And yet, she continued, you have not fired. Another impact. Closer. The upper spire of the palace sheared away and collapsed past the broken dome, tumbling into the city below in a cascade of light. My comm crackled briefly, just enough to catch a fragment of encrypted burst traffic. Clean sweep protocol. No survivors. They weren't just targeting her. They were targeting the entire command tier. Anyone who might have accessed those files. I made the decision before my mind fully caught up. I ejected the targeting chip from my rifle and crushed it beneath my boot. Her gaze sharpened. You understand what that means, she said. Yes. Treason. Maybe. Another tremor rolled through the structure. Move, I said. We descended into the spiral just as the observatory ceiling collapsed completely. The tunnel sealed behind us with a grinding resonance that muffled the roar of orbital fire. The temperature dropped sharply as we spiraled deeper into the planet's crust. The architecture changed as we descended. No longer imperial crystal, but rough-hewn stone reinforced with bioluminescent filaments. Ancient engineering, designed to survive planetary shifts. Were these built for war? I asked as we moved quickly down the incline. No, she replied. They were built when our species feared extinction from natural catastrophe. Ironically, they will now serve the same purpose. The ground shook violently as another series of strikes impacted above. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. How far to a secondary exit? I demanded. 3 kilometers. Estimated collapse probability? High. Of course it was. We reached a junction chamber where multiple tunnels branched outward. Lysera moved without hesitation, choosing the leftmost corridor. You trust one won't shoot you from behind? She asked as we ran. If I wanted you dead, I replied, you'd already be. Fair. The deeper we went, the quieter the bombardment became, though the vibrations remained constant. My HUD began to lose orbital tracking data entirely. Signal blackout, which meant one thing. The palace was gone. They've reduced the upper tiers, I said. Yes. You just lost your capital. I lost it the moment the war began. There was no self-pity in her tone, just fact. We reached a narrow transport shaft where an ancient platform waited embedded in the wall. She activated it with a coded sequence. The platform descended rapidly through a vertical tunnel illuminated by faint blue growths along the rock. You realize, I said over the hum of the descent, once we surface, I'm a target for both sides. Yes. Your loyalists will see me as the assassin. Yes. My command will see me as compromised. Yes. You don't sugarcoat things. There is no value in false comfort. The platform halted abruptly at a subterranean transit corridor. The architecture here was older still, metallic veins fused into rock, conduits humming with dormant energy. How many know about this route? I asked. Very few. Any of them corporate assets? Her silence lasted half a second too long. Possibly. I exhaled slowly. Of course. We moved through the corridor at a controlled pace now, conserving energy. The bombardment vibrations finally faded into distant tremors. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a vast underground hangar carved into the planet's mantle. Ancient vessels lined the cavern, sleek, organic craft grown rather than built. Contingency fleet, I murmured. Yes. Why not use it earlier? Because fleeing confirms guilt. And now? She looked at me directly. Now survival outweighs perception. Alarms suddenly pulsed through my visor. New heat signatures. Subterranean. Inbound. They tracked us, I said. Already. Not orbital. Ground insertion. My heart sank. Black Ops. They deployed teams to ensure no escape vector remained. They're thorough, I muttered. Yes. How long? Minutes. I looked at the nearest vessel. Capacity, 2 pilots. Manual override available. You can fly? She asked. Better than most. She stepped toward the craft, then stopped. If you leave now, she said quietly, you may still outrun their narrative. Claim coercion. And you? I will attempt to misdirect pursuit. You won't survive. Survival was never guaranteed. I stared at her. The war architect. The supposed monster. Standing in an ancient hangar beneath her destroyed capital. Prepared to die so that I might walk free. That wasn't in the dossier. I stepped past her and keyed the vessel open. We both leave, I said. Her gaze sharpened again. You are certain? No, I admitted. But I'm not here to die covering up someone else's crime. A distant concussion echoed through the tunnels. They were close. I powered the vessel core. The organic hull pulsed to life around us. As the hangar gates began to open, I glanced at her. At this point, I said quietly, I came as a mercenary to finish off the Empress. The engines roared to full ignition, and I'm about to leave as the man who helps her escape. The gates split apart. We launched into the ash-choked sky of a burning capital. And behind us, Aurelia Prime collapsed in fire. We didn't jump to warp immediately. That would have been predictable. Every extraction protocol I'd ever studied followed the same logic. Escape vector, jump point, rendezvous. Helix Dominion would anticipate that. Earth Command would anticipate that. Hell, half the surviving Velkith fleet would anticipate that. So instead I dove straight into the debris cloud left by the bombardment. Fragments of Aurelia Prime's upper spires drifted in orbit, crystalline shards the size of skyscrapers, molten edges still glowing. I killed primary emissions and shifted the vessel to passive propulsion, letting gravity wells pull us into the wreckage field. Risky, Lysera observed from the co-pilot interface, her hands gliding across unfamiliar human-augmented controls with unsettling precision. Predictable is worse, I said. They'll be scanning jump corridors first. A human strike cruiser passed overhead minutes later, engines flaring blue as it repositioned. My chest tightened. I knew that hull configuration. 7th Expeditionary Fleet. I'd fought alongside them on 3 campaigns. Now they were hunting me. They'll classify you as compromised within the hour, Lycera said quietly. Probably already did. A faint pulse echoed through the vessel, a long-range scan sweep. I angled the craft behind a rotating fragment of palace debris, matching its spin to mask our profile. The scan passed. No lock. No pursuit, yet. We can't stay in the field forever, she said. No. I brought up a star map and plotted an irregular course, small vector adjustments, false thrust bursts, gravitational slingshot maneuvers around minor moons in the system. Destination? She asked. Virex. Her gaze shifted toward me. The mining moon? Neutral by treaty. Unimportant strategically. That makes it valuable. It has been abandoned for decades, which means no official patrol rotations. She studied the trajectory. You are good at this. I've survived this long. We drifted for 6 hours through orbital wreckage before braking toward the outer system under minimal power. Only once we were clear of immediate sensor range did I engage low-signature warp. Even then, I staggered the jump in fragmented bursts, short distances, recalculations, random vectors. By the time Virex Moon came into view, we'd shaken at least 3 tracking attempts. Virex was ugly, scarred, carved open by strip mining centuries earlier. Entire mountain ranges hollowed out, now reduced to skeletal ridges under a dim red dwarf star. No atmosphere to speak of beyond thin industrial residue. Home, I muttered. We landed inside a collapsed extraction hangar partially buried beneath regolith. The vessel sealed itself seamlessly into the rock face, masking residual emissions. Silence settled around us. For the first time since the bombardment. No explosions, no alarms, just the low hum of environmental stabilization. Lycera stood near the open hatch, staring at the desolate horizon through the viewport. You have lost much, she said. So have you. She inclined her head slightly. Yes. We moved into the abandoned colony tunnels, corridors lined with rusted machinery and obsolete mining rigs. The gravity here was lighter. Every step felt slightly detached from the ground. Why Virex specifically, she asked. Old Ranger fallback route, I replied. Pre-war supply caches. Not in any current database. She paused. You plan for desertion. I plan for contingencies that earn the faintest hint of something like approval. We located the cache chamber after 2 hours of searching, sealed behind a bulkhead disguised as a collapsed or chute. Inside, emergency rations, portable comm arrays, shielded processors. I powered up the comm unit carefully, routing through layered encryption protocols. If we transmit openly, they triangulate within minutes, I said. Yes. So we don't transmit openly. She stepped closer as I configured the system. Who will you contact? She asked. Not who. What? I accessed old Ranger intelligence boards, hidden forums where disillusioned officers and field commanders exchanged fragments of information they couldn't report through official channels. Encrypted, paranoid, but persistent. You're not the only one who noticed irregularities, I said. You believe others will listen? They won't listen to you. She didn't react. They might listen to me. I embedded fragments of the Helix Dominion files she'd shown me. Just enough to provoke scrutiny, not enough to expose the full archive. Within minutes, response pings began to flicker across the screen. Unverified but active. Fleet Captain Jonah Hale, suspended 3 years ago for procedural insubordination. Senator Miriam Cade, vocal critic of war expansion budgets. 2 Velkith Hive elders flagged through cross-species diplomatic backchannels. Lycera's eyes widened slightly. You had these contacts already. I had doubts, I corrected. Now I have confirmation. She stepped to another terminal and began accessing her own encrypted network. Velkith dissidents. Fleet commanders who'd questioned early offensive orders. A former intelligence director presumed dead. You have been cultivating this for years, I said. Yes. Waiting for proof. Yes. We worked in silence for hours, cross-referencing data, verifying authentication codes, constructing a mosaic of corruption that spanned both species. The pattern was undeniable now. Helix Dominion shell subsidiaries, procurement anomalies, manufactured scarcity reports. Every escalation in the war correlated with spikes in corporate revenue. They engineered us, I said quietly. Yes. Both of us. Yes. The simplicity of her answers was no longer unsettling. It was grounding. By the third day, responses had evolved from cautious to committed. Hale sent fleet positioning data confirming Helix-aligned commanders within Earth's Admiralty. Cade transmitted internal audit trails linking Dominion executives to covert campaign funding. Velkith elders provided proof of sabotaged diplomatic channels during early ceasefire attempts. The war wasn't just manipulated. It was designed. You realize, I said, leaning back against the cold metal wall. Once this goes public, there's no containing the fallout. That is the point, she replied. You'll fracture both governments. They are already fractured. Footsteps echoed faintly through the outer tunnel. I froze. Lysera's posture shifted instantly. Not ours, she whispered. Thermal scan confirmed it. 3 figures moving cautiously along the perimeter corridor. Human. Armed. Black Ops, I muttered. They found us already? Not precisely. Virex still has scavengers. Could be freelance hunters. I drew my sidearm and moved toward the choke point. The figures approached, scanning equipment visible. I recognized the gear. Corporate grade. Helix Dominion retrieval team. They weren't here for her. They were here for data. I stepped into view first. They didn't expect that. Their weapons came up, hesitated. Recognition flickered in the team leader's visor. Mercer, he said. Stand down, I replied calmly. You're classified as hostile. Not the first time. His gaze shifted past me, catching sight of Lysera in the dim light behind. So it's true. Depends what you think is true. He hesitated. Just long enough. Lysera moved faster than I anticipated, disarming the nearest operative with a fluid strike that sent his rifle clattering across the corridor. I fired once, precise, disabling the leader's weapon at the power coupling. The third operative retreated instantly. Pull back, he shouted into his comm. They withdrew. Not defeated. Testing. They'll report, I said. Yes. And next time it won't be 3. No. She stepped closer. You chose to stand in front of me, she said quietly. That was tactical positioning. That was not tactical. I met her gaze. Don't read into it. But the truth lingered between us anyway. We weren't just fugitives now. We were building something. Fragile. Dangerous. Shared. The alliance was taking shape, not as an army, but as a network. Humans. Velkith. Officers. Civilians. People tired of bleeding for shareholders. We'll need a symbol, Hale transmitted later that evening. Something undeniable. I glanced at Lysera. She was already looking at me. They won't believe documents alone, she said softly. No, I agreed. They'll need proof that cooperation is possible. Silence stretched between us. Outside, Virex's red dwarf dipped below the crater horizon. We were hunted, outnumbered, outgunned. But for the first time since the war began, the narrative wasn't controlled by Helix Dominion. It was shifting, and somehow, the assassin and the Empress were at the center of it. 6 weeks on Virex changed the rhythm of my breathing. War had trained me to live inside noise. Engines, artillery, tactical chatter. Even silence on a battlefield had a pulse to it, like a held breath before impact. Virex had a different kind of quiet. Heavy, airless, honest. The mining colony tunnels became our world, a web of abandoned shafts, storage chambers, and collapsed rail lines that we slowly converted into a functional base. I rigged motion sensors through the outer corridors, tied them into old mining power grids. Lysera adapted alien interface nodes to human processors with unnerving efficiency. She learned fast. Too fast. You were trained for this, I told her one night while we recalibrated a defensive perimeter. Yes, she replied without looking up. Not as a queen. No. I studied her in the dim utility lighting. Then as what? She paused. Intelligence. That didn't surprise me. It explained the observatory. The data. The way she had stood there waiting for me like she'd run every scenario and selected the one where I arrived. You knew my file? I said. Yes. How much? Everything Helix Dominion thought was useful. That made my jaw tighten. Define useful. You lost your wife and daughter in the 3rd year of the war. Civilian transport destroyed during a Velkith retaliatory strike. My chest constricted before I could stop it. That was classified. Helix Dominion classified nothing that could be weaponized. She didn't say it cruelly, just clinically. You chose contracts that maximized personal risk afterward, she continued. You declined promotion, declined retirement. You developed a pattern of volunteering for high-casualty missions. I exhaled slowly. And you thought that made me easy to manipulate. Yes. She met my gaze evenly. I believed your grief would make you receptive to evidence that the war was not what it appeared. So you set the stage. Yes. Waiting alone. No guards. Yes. You studied my psychology. Yes. The repetition wasn't defensive. It was deliberate. I stood up and walked to the far wall, staring at the mineral seams embedded in the rock. You chose me, I said quietly. Yes. Out of every mercenary on Earth. Yes. Because I was broken. Her voice softened slightly. Because you were capable of seeing beyond the script. I let out a short breath that almost resembled a laugh. That's a generous interpretation. It is accurate. I turned back toward her. You manipulated me. Yes. The word hung between us. There it was. Clean. Unhidden. Most people would have dressed it up. Rationalized it. She didn't. You were a calculated variable, she said. The only one with sufficient combat record to make your hesitation credible. So if I'd pulled the trigger, then I miscalculated. That honesty disarmed me more than any tactic. You risked extinction on a psychological gamble. Yes. Why? Because conventional strategy failed. The simplicity of it again. She stepped closer, bioluminescent patterns along her skin faintly shifting with her emotional state. I'd learned to read them over the past weeks. Slight variations in hue, in rhythm. Right now, there was tension there. Not fear. Vulnerability. I will tell you the rest, she said quietly. I'm listening. When I selected you, she continued, I did not anticipate this. She gestured faintly between us. This being, this trust. That word landed heavier than manipulation. You expected me to turn on you eventually. Yes. Still do. She held my gaze. No. Silence expanded. You're either very brave, I said, or very reckless. Perhaps both. I leaned against the wall. You want the truth? I asked. Yes. I knew. She blinked once. Knew what? That you were playing angles in the observatory. Her posture shifted slightly. You did not. I did. I stepped closer. 12 years of interrogation resistance training. I've seen persuasion tactics, emotional leverage, framed vulnerability. And yet you chose to stay. Yes. Why? Because the evidence was real. Because the fleet signatures were real. Because the orbital bombardment confirmed the cover-up. Because when the strike ships fired, they weren't trying to rescue me. They were trying to erase me. I came as a mercenary to finish off the Empress, I said quietly. Her expression stilled, and I stayed as the man she trusted. The words felt heavier spoken aloud, more permanent. Her bioluminescence shifted, warmer. That is not what I expected you to say, she admitted. I know. We stood there in the dim tunnel light, surrounded by scavenged equipment and improvised defenses, both aware of how thin the line between alliance and something deeper had become. I need to tell you something else, she said. Go on. When I first contacted Hale and the others through your channels, I did not disclose that you were fully cooperative. What did you tell them? That you were unstable. I almost smiled. Accurate. I told them you were emotionally compromised. Also accurate. I implied I might lose control of you. That made me laugh properly. Now that's just insulting. Her eyes held mine. It was protection. For who? For you. That stopped me. If they believed you were entirely aligned with me, she continued, they would view you as irredeemable if we failed. And now they see you as uncertain, which buys leverage. Yes. You're still manipulating variables. Yes. But not me. No. A subtle tremor passed through the tunnel floor. Not seismic. Mechanical. I felt it through the soles of my boots. Contact, I said instantly. She was already moving toward the sensor array. Thermal signatures flared across the outer perimeter. More than 3 this time. 12. Human. Organized formation. Helix Dominion insignia pinged faintly through the scan distortion. They escalated, I muttered. Yes. They're not scouting. No. They were here to finish what the bombardment failed to complete. I moved to the weapons cache. You should retreat to the secondary shaft, I said. I will not. This isn't about pride. Neither is this. She stepped beside me. They are not here solely for you, she said. They are here for the data. And if they can't retrieve it, they will destroy it. I checked the timer on our broadcast relay. not yet ready. The coalition needed more corroboration before we could expose everything publicly. We needed time. The outer corridor detonated. Shockwaves tore through the mining supports. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. They breached, I said. Yes. I looked at her. Whatever happens. I know. No, I interrupted. You don't. I stepped closer. If this goes bad, you don't surrender. You don't try to negotiate. Her gaze sharpened. I do not intend to. Good. Because Helix Dominion didn't negotiate. They erased. And as the first black-armored figures emerged through the smoke-filled tunnel, I realized this was the moment where manipulation ended. And choice began. Again. The first Dominion operative stepped through the smoke with surgical confidence. Black composite armor. Adaptive visors. Weapons built specifically for one purpose. Anti-Velkith lethality. The barrels hummed with harmonic charge frequencies designed to disrupt her species' bioenergetic lattice. They weren't here to capture. They were here to erase. I fired first. 2 controlled shots. Center mass on the lead operative. His shield flared, absorbed the impact, destabilized. He stumbled back into the tunnel wall. Return fire scorched the corridor. Lysera moved beside me. Not behind. Fluid, precise, disarming one of them with a strike that redirected his weapon discharge into the ceiling supports. Rock rained down. They kept advancing. Thermal spread increasing, she said calmly. They're bracketing the chamber. They anticipated your defensive patterns. Of course they did. Another blast tore through the left wall, exposing raw vacuum beyond the mining seal. Emergency barriers slammed into place automatically, sealing the breach. They will collapse the entire shaft if necessary, she said. Not if they want the data. They will choose destruction over exposure. I knew she was right. The Dominion had contingency protocols layered on contingency protocols. If retrieval failed, annihilation was standard practice. I checked the Coalition relay timer. 8 minutes until transmission window. Too long. A pulse round struck the console beside us. Sparks exploded outward. They're adjusting frequency, I muttered. Learning your biopattern. Yes. Her tone remained steady, but her bioluminescence had shifted toward a sharper spectrum. Alert. Focused. I grabbed her arm and pulled her behind a reinforced mining column as another harmonic burst vaporized the wall where she had stood seconds before. They're tuning to your physiology, I said. Yes. They'll eventually find the lethal frequency. Yes. We were losing structural integrity. Losing ground. The tunnel behind us shuddered again. A secondary team likely advancing from the lower access shaft. They've boxed us, I said. Yes. Silence fell for a fraction of a second between volleys. Then she spoke. There is another option. I'm open to miracles. It is not a miracle. Her eyes locked onto mine. It is a ritual. I almost laughed. Now. Yes. This isn't exactly ceremonial timing. It is necessary. Another blast shook the chamber. The outer bulkhead began to buckle inward. She stepped closer despite the incoming fire. There exists within Velkith's sovereign lineage an ancient right, she said, voice unwavering even as debris fell around us. A neural convergence. I don't like the sound of that. It permanently bonds 2 consciousness streams. Defined permanently. Biologically irreversible. My heart skipped. What does that get us? It merges our bioenergetic signatures. And the weapons they carry are tuned specifically to my species. I understood before she finished. If we merge, I said slowly, their targeting harmonics won't isolate you. Yes. They'll hit both of us. No. Her gaze didn't break. They will hit neither. Another harmonic blast struck the column, cracking it down the center. You're telling me bonding with you makes me immune to their anti-Velkith weapons? Yes. At what cost? Everything. She didn't hesitate. It is sacred among my people. Equivalent to marriage in human culture. Identity intertwines. Emotional states intertwine. Memory pathways remain distinct, but sensory experience overlaps. And politically, if we survive, she said, it will destabilize every extremist narrative on both sides. I looked at the approaching Dominion operatives. 3 meters. Closing. You're proposing we become a symbol mid-firefight. I am proposing survival. And this bond? I asked. You've done it before? No. You're sure it works? Yes. How? Because it was designed for wartime. Another blast shattered the last of the mining column. We were exposed. She reached for my face, alien fingers warm against my skin. "There is no time," she said. My mind raced. Permanent. Irreversible. Consciousness intertwined. A life that would never again be entirely my own. I thought of my wife, of my daughter, of the 12 years of empty contracts that followed, of the moment in the observatory when I didn't pull the trigger, of the choice beneath the fire. "I came as a mercenary to finish off the Empress," I said quietly. Her eyes shimmered, and I stayed as the man she trusted. The Dominion team leader raised his weapon. "Do it," I said. Her hands moved instantly, pressing to my temples. Her bioluminescence flared bright, flooding the chamber in radiant blue. The air thickened. Sound distorted. Something pierced my consciousness, not pain. Expansion. Suddenly I could feel her. Not physically, internally. A second heartbeat overlaying mine. Memories flickered across my vision. Hive cities bathed in violet light. Ancient coronation rites. The weight of millions of lives depending on a single decision. She gasped. Through the connection, I felt her awareness collide with mine. Earth battlefields, ranger training fields, the explosion that took my family, years of hollow violence. The Dominion operatives fired. The harmonic round struck and dissolved. The energy rippled outward from us in a coherent field, a merged resonance neither fully human nor fully Velkith. The operatives hesitated. Confusion flickered in their movements. "What the hell?" one muttered. I stepped forward. Not alone. We stepped forward. The field around us pulsed in synchronized rhythm. "You designed those weapons to kill her," I said, though the voice that emerged carried layered harmonics. "You never considered what would happen if her species bonded with mine." They fired again. The rounds splashed harmlessly against the merged shield. The team leader's posture shifted from aggression to uncertainty. "Fall back," he barked. 2 more attempts. Same result. Their tactical assumptions had collapsed. "Report this," I said evenly. "Tell Helix Dominion their variable has evolved." They retreated, not out of mercy, out of recalculation. Silence returned to the chamber, broken only by the low hum of the shield dissipating. The sensation of her consciousness inside mine didn't fade. It stabilized. I could feel her breathing. Her emotions. Fear, yes, but also something stronger. Relief. "You are intact?" she asked. "I think so." Our hands were still touching. Neither of us moved away. "You understand," she said softly through the bond. "There is no reversal." I figured. "And you accept this?" I looked at her, truly looked at her, not just with my eyes, but with the shared awareness now flowing between us. The loneliness I'd carried for years felt quieter. Not gone, but shared. "I'm not losing you to a kill team," I said. Through the bond, I felt her pulse spike. "That was not strategic reasoning," she said. "No." She almost smiled. The relay console flickered back to life. "Coalition transmission window. Open." "We're out of time," I said. "Yes." "Then let's give them something they can't ignore." Together, not side by side, but intertwined, we activated the broadcast. Across Earth, across Velkith hive worlds, across every system Helix Dominion had touched, the evidence began to play. And for the first time since the war began, the narrative wasn't theirs anymore. The broadcast didn't end the war. It detonated it. Across Earth, riots ignited within hours. Stock markets froze. Helix Dominion headquarters were stormed by their own shareholders before military police even arrived. Fleet commanders began issuing contradictory orders. Some demanded our arrest. Others demanded investigations. On Velkith worlds, Hive councils split. Loyalists called me an abomination. Dissidents called us proof. Through the bond, I felt everything Lysera felt, the tidal wave of outrage, grief, vindication, terror. And she felt mine. The disbelief as decorated admirals publicly denied knowledge. The rage when leaked financial ledgers confirmed what we already knew. Helix Dominion tried to recover. They called us fabrications. Then more evidence surfaced. Then whistleblowers. Then internal recordings. Within 3 months, arrest warrants were issued for 6 Dominion executives. 2 vanished. 1 was captured trying to flee beyond the Outer Rim. The war didn't stop cleanly. It never does. There were splinter factions, rogue admirals, assassination attempts, 3 on her, 2 on me. Each time, The merged resonance shield flared when weapons tuned to kill her struck us. Each time, they failed. 2 years passed in negotiation halls instead of battlefields. We traveled between worlds as something neither side fully understood. Not human, not Velkith, but both. Some called us a political stunt. Others called us evolution. Treaties were signed in the rebuilt capital of Aurelia Prime, not of crystal and arrogance this time, but reinforced alloy and open plazas. Helix Dominion collapsed under prosecution. Warfleets stood down. Exchange programs began. It wasn't perfect. Peace never is. But children were born who would never memorize evacuation protocols as lullabies. One evening, standing on the balcony of the new palace, ships from both species orbiting peacefully above us, I felt her warmth beside me. Inside me, steady and familiar. I never expected this, she said softly through the bond. Neither did I. I looked at the stars that had once framed her as my target. I came to kill the alien Empress, I said quietly. She turned toward me, her bioluminescence warm and bright, and I stayed as the man she trusted. I slipped my hand into hers, though technically, we were never separate anymore. I think, I added, watching the joint fleet glide through orbit, we both got more than we bargained for. Through the bond, I felt her laughter, and for the first time in a decade, there was no war inside me. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Write in the comments what moment in this story impressed you the most. And also check out the other videos that just appeared on your screen. See you in the next video.